Welcome to Earful of Dirt. We are live. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are the Major League Rugby podcast, and I completely screwed up the intro because I've been off for a week and my mind is elsewhere. I'm Corey Munson, coming to you live from Des Moines, Iowa. I'm joined as always by Aaron Castro down in Arizona and Liam Madigan-Fried in Houston, Texas. Josh Fredland is over in the comments section, so be sure to hit him up with your thoughts and questions during the show. So guys, how's the last couple of weeks been? Did I miss anything?
Well, you apparently need to be in a padded room because that echo is trash.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll try to get that fixed for next week.
If we're selecting all MLR first 15 Game of Thrones style, are you going to go with Arya because she got the bad skills, or are you going to go with Cersei because she's a straight witch?
My mind trailed off after you said Arya, for obvious reasons. Because sorry, what were we talking about, man?
We're selecting first team scrum half.
Oh yeah,
Arya or Cersei.
I'll always got to go with Arya. She'd be a great scrum half.
I mean, she's got knives. She's got stuff. I mean, she's even. I think even with Cersei being, some crazy lady, that Arya is probably going to take her head off. So we're good to go.
I mean, all Arya has to do is cut Jaime's face off and head into the capital, and it's over for Cersei. So
mid adult pleasantries.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for the Game of Thrones podcast this week.
Yeah. As far as the week went, it went. What is it? I slammed some freaking sushi on Thursday night, and then I think that's more carbs than I eat in like 2 weeks usually. So I woke up with not a stomach ache, but like it felt like there was a boulder in my stomach. Like It took all day to go away. So, but I will say Asahi, it's a Japanese beer, is great. It's great. But yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, my week was pretty good with the SaberCats having an away game. I had a little bit of downtime to be able to watch the game on TV, feeling like a fan for once. Other than that, just Game of Thrones has been on my mind ever since episode 1 premiered, and so it's good to talk about that with you guys here. Because nobody else talks about it with me. My roommate doesn't really watch it all that much, so.
Well. So let's talk about that. Does he tell you that he doesn't watch it? Like, is he one of those people?
No.
Okay,
no, he's not.
Because here's the thing, so I've looked at some polls that were done by some sports people on Twitter where it was like NBA Finals or it's like NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, or Game of Thrones. What are you watching on Thursday? And you had like massive polls of like 20,000 people casting a vote and 80% for Game of Thrones. So if people tell you like virtue signal, let's use that term. If people want to do that and say they don't watch Game of Thrones, that they lying. Because they're going to tell you they lying. B, it's like March Madness. How do you go through life not having that one piece of cultural phenomenon in your life? Because that's what everyone is talking about at the water cooler the next day.
I actually don't really participate in March Madness all that much. I'm from the Northeast, where we don't give a fuck about college sports. Like,
what are you talking about? Boston College is like, old school Big East.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I love the BC Eagles. I love the Harvard Crimson and everything like that. But it's just not this sort of fanaticism that you get in other parts of the country up in the Northeast. Like, there's not this. Like, whole towns don't shut down on college game day. Like the town of Newton or Chestnut Hill doesn't shut down when the Eagles are playing a football game. Like life kind of just goes on. The Patriots, the Red Sox, and the Bruins, however, the professional teams, they give us more than enough reasons to be happy.
So it's like being let's put it this way. It's like being in the Northeast during football season for the NFL. And somebody that's up there that says, I'm not a Patriots fan. I didn't watch any of the games. Or all these people that I go to school with that don't know what Major League Rugby is.
Yeah. that was pretty much my life last year.
Well, we're just happy because we finally have a couch as of today. So we got a couch at the apartment. So
you sold not only your house but your furniture.
Well, no, the furniture was pretty much pretty ragged by the time we were moving out anyway, because it was mostly secondhand to begin with. So we just kind of ditched it, and once we got into the new place, are replacing it piece by piece. So,
Corey, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie Funny Farm with Chevy Chase. I just kind of imagine the beginning of that movie where Chevy is just kind of they have to sleep on the hardwood floors because the movers got lost because they couldn't read Chevy Chase's map.
Oh, man.
I can just see that happening to a simple Iowan,
Let's put it this way. If I were to pan the camera this way a little bit, you would see the air mattress that my wife and I are still sleeping on. So, piece by piece.
How do the dogs feel about that?
Yeah, they're fine with it. It's a nice mattress as far as air mattresses go.
So, by the way, if anybody's keeping up with the Earful of Dirt drinking game, that's like 2 or 3 long-winded conversations that have nothing to do about rugby.
A lot.
So, start pounding them back.
Making fun of Iowa.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this.
As always, for those of you new to the podcast, each Monday night we discuss news, rumors, and all that fun stuff from Major League Rugby, the United States Professional Rugby Union. It's a chance to look at the issues, hear from the league, players, and team leadership, and to check in with our friends from across the U.S. rugby scene. Aaron, what are we covering this week?
So, Glendale knocked down and bludgeoned by the Legion. New York survives Classic Utah. The Sabercats with reinforcements still fall. Seawolves survive. Gumbo Rugby.
All right. So let's start things out with a little Raptors versus Legion action. And oh my, this was a thumping. That's just a good old-fashioned shellacking is what it was. Liam, start us out. What did you see at this one?
No, please, by all means, keep on saying dadisms or whatever the hell the shellacking, kalacking, kawacking stuff is. But anyway, I chose Glendale.
They were beat down like a redheaded stepchild.
Damn, man.
Dadisms.
So I chose Glendale for the sake of a potential tiebreaker when it comes to tallying up picks, and that could not have gone more wrong for me. I was awful in terms of my predictions this week, as you will find out later on in the show.
Idiot!
Oh, shut up. San Diego is peaking at just the right time, where Glendale seems to be faltering in the latter half of the season. San Diego seems to be adjusting well enough to the lengthened schedule just fine. This is one of my hopes that I held out for Houston, being like, oh, well, this is their second time playing a whole 16-game schedule. They'll be used to it. No, it didn't work. But San Diego seems to be going through and getting stronger as they go. So definitely big ups to that squad and to Coach Rob Hoadley on getting his team prepared. When I read the first column in the stat report for meters gained, I was kind of surprised. San Diego at 892 meters gained, Glendale at 856. So not a huge disparity there. But then I took a look at the number of passes and holy crap. San Diego had 124 passes for an average meters per pass of 7.2, while it took Glendale 215 passes for an MPP of 3.9. So there's issue number one right there. Not a ton of efficiency with the ball in hand, but here's the thing. Glendale is built to overcome that, you might think. Johnny Ryberg, Mika Kruse, Dylan Takato Simpson, all those people can, make up for some of the deficiencies there. But as long as you don't do something stupid like commit 20 plus turnovers in a single game, right? Uh-oh. But anyway, let's talk about some of the guys on the winning team. Mikey Te'o, one of my favorite all-time. 2 tries, 154 meters at 12.8 meters a pop. This guy is a huge factor for the Legion in their push to secure a playoff spot. Though not only his production, but his leadership on the field as well. This guy's a veteran, tons of caps appearing for the United States on the national stage. He's one of the reasons why this team is surging at just the right time. But San Diego actually had not 1, not 2, but 3 players actually go over 100 meters in this contest in total. The first, of course, being Mikey Te'o. The second and third being Nick Boyer and Vera Malua with 150 and 100 meters gained, respectively. I had to double check to make sure Boyer wasn't at scrum half at first, because at first I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, Dylan Takato Simpson for Glendale was definitely the highlight player for them. 116 total meters. Johnny Ryberg came
headlock.
Yeah, straight up, man. But Ryberg came close to breaking a century at 98 meters gained, but his night, I think, was unfortunately overshadowed by some ill-timed drops in the passing game, which, swung the momentum back the other way. Overall, it was an entertaining enough game, but there was definitely a lot of sloppiness this weekend as a whole.
So what do you want to know? Is Nate Augsburger becoming better than Sean Davies? Well, I've been singing Nate's praises past couple weeks. He had a pretty good game. I will say this debate is going to actually start raging. Overall, their stat lines were very similar. Both of them are athletic. They tackle. They put the ball in play. The goods. They are now looking more similar in this season than they, I would say, previously. Nate's only redeeming characteristic was his athletic carries off the ruck, but this time, his service has gotten better. But I will comment on some of that. I think they went a little too slow at the ruck this week, and Glendale did try to disrupt that. They got 3 breakdown steals a few times. They weren't that good to actually do it. They got caught off their feet several times, but they really disrupted and tried to create slow ball. And some of that time, Nate was just trying to burn the clock, at least from what I could tell, because they had under a 50% quick ball when it came to their rucks. Really interesting game from the fact of a lineup perspective with player rotation due to injury and resting guys. This really isn't San Diego's best lineup. But holy moly. So, spoke to Rob Hoadley early last week, and he talked up a lot of his players' development, especially, the loose side props, O.C. Piffaletti and Nate Sylvia. Definitely talked up Savanaka Totavasua, Sa'u, which we didn't get to see in this match, I think, due to injury. We definitely didn't see JP Duplessis because of injury, and that's why we see, Nick Boyer on the wing. For the most part, he let players even develop in this game and let them get time. Patty Ryan came off the bench after at the second half. Aaron Mitchell started and really did pretty well against Noah Barker. Overall, I really expected more out of Noah Barker. I thought Marco Fepulei played really well against both Mitchell and Ryan. But so that's the battle of the front row. I think Fenolio and Dean Muir. I mean, they both did their things. When it comes to the Raptors, they're missing a lot of pieces. I don't know where Casey Rock is. I thought he retired, but he was signed for this season. Why isn't he on a match day roster? Is he injured? I want to know. Because he would be a true lock that they could put in at 5 and they would have a real line out option. But right now they've got Cody O'Neal coming off the bench, and then you've got Brendan Daly playing at 6. And I guess I would flip Brendan Daly and Luke White, who is shorter and smaller than Brendan Daly, and put Luke White at 6. And, William Monroe, who came off early in the game, I think at the 30-minute mark for Cody O'Neill, I think due to injury, he's a 6 or a 7. Like he's not he can play 8. When he played 8 for the Glendale Raptors, he had a really good game. So I don't know what they're doing there. It's really affecting their scrum in this game. I don't think it really did much for them because just of how the player rotation worked for San Diego. When it came to their transition defense, line out throwing, really it wasn't good. Josivera Malua stole like an overthrown line out, and their transition defense just sucked, and they couldn't do anything. You want to talk about, and this is where you go against the best tactician on any team in Major League Rugby, and that's Joe Peterson. If you don't have these small things down, it's going to hurt you. So overall, looking at San Diego's back row, it went to work. Saul Wuching, he just continues to grow and grow. Jordan Manhara, really good. And opposite him, you had 20 carries for Murphy Terramine. But after that, it was kind of hit and miss. Another dominant performance overall by San Diego. Glendale, you guys got to go to the drawing board. And I'm not saying you got to listen to me. I'm not an expert, but I think not having true locks in the lineup really hurts you. The way the timing on passes affected both Ryberg and Harley Davidson just really did not help your tempo. 21 turnovers. I will give it to Nick Boyer on the wing. He really helped contain Harley Davidson very well and just matched up pretty good. Liam talked about meters made and the differential not being that much. Normally gives Glendale an edge is their ability to just run around and wear you down. We saw this in the SaberCats game specifically. But let's talk about the best defense in the league. It really didn't matter what Glendale did. 203 tackles made. That's almost a tackle per pass. That is like 98.5% tackle rate on a pass made by Glendale. What? So, yeah, San Diego's peaking even with injury. That's important to look at. I think they play New Orleans next? I think it's probably at the bottom, and I made a pick, and I'm an idiot. But whoever they play next is they're going to need to put their mouthpiece in and clamp down.
Yeah, well, we'll check here in a few minutes as soon as we get down there. So the next match up for the weekend was a horse of a different color, I'd say. We saw Utah travel to RUNY and fall to New York 22-24. So this was a real squeaker up in Coney Island. Aaron, why don't you start us off with this one?
Interesting front row choice by New York. Really happy for Anthony Perry to get the start. He played really well. Roquefort, come on, man. You have been playing really well. And at tight head, it did not go well. Important to note, tight head and loose head are like completely different positions, and hooker and tight head are more similar in how you sort of feel inside the scrum. Or maybe Franco Vandenberg is just getting more consistent. But Angus, what is going on with you, man? Anthony Perry out-scrummed him. Don't Patty, he do Don't Patty things. Also, make sure you actually tackle him because he just sort of rolled and Gannon Moore gave him a push on the tush and he just burst through and scored a try. So that's fun. When I look at Utah's game, New York got lucky. Overall, New York had some good individual play, but as a team, they were very disjointed to my naked eye. Utah put up a lot of offense. They also, what was the penalty rate on this game? Let me look that up. Yeah. Penalties conceded 12. Turnovers conceded. They actually turned the ball over less. But when you have like that many penalties, it's always going to kill you. And they conceded 2 free kicks as well. It's
20 total penalties in this game. So 12 conceded by Utah, 8 conceded by RUNY.
Yeah. They had a higher quick ball rate. One of the things that kills you, yes, even though I talked down upon New York scrum, they still beat Utah. They had 100% to 88%. Utah has struggled in the scrum, which, with the way things are being officiated now compared to, say, 5 to 10 years ago, it's more of a coin flip. But if you have a powerful platform, it really changes things significantly. But based on where we were, Utah was ahead. When Anthony Perry scored that try, there was like 15 minutes of this game just being a snoozer, and I was actually out drooling. So sorry, but when you go handling error, knock on handling error, you miss stuff like that. Set piece moves for New York, their maul worked very well. And Utah's not so much.
Yeah. Well, as I'll let people know later on in the show, I can definitely relate in the whole falling asleep right before a game aspect or during a game aspect. But anyway, we haven't had that many crazy upsets in Major League Rugby this year, and I totally thought this was going to be the first. But, I also thought that about the Sabercats going against Glendale and Toronto and San Diego. Yeah, you get the idea. Anyway, New York, 56% possession rate, 846 total meters with an average meters per pass of 5.7. Utah coming up just a bit behind them with an MPP of 5.1 on 726 total meters. So despite a fast start, they couldn't quite measure up to New York's efficiency with the ball in hand. Not only that, Utah also kind of got in their own way more than once. 11 turnovers, as Aaron mentioned, 13 penalties, and 2 free kicks conceded. When you're trying to upset a potential top 4 contender, you have to play really disciplined rugby, and Utah came up mad short in that aspect. When it comes to players, Dylan Fawcett and Connor Wallace-Sims were 2 people who really impressed me for New York, making 158 and 104 respectively. I really like Fawcett at 8-man. I think gives him a little bit more of an opportunity to get involved offensively. When you're a hooker with his ball carrying ability, it kind of feels like you're a fullback in football who can outstrip half the running back depth chart. So I'm glad they moved into a spot that he's better utilized back there at the 8 spot. Utah's Lauti and Uhila, Aaron highlighted them again, 100 meters and 148 and 120 meters respectively. So both of them breaking the century mark. That's awesome for them. Lauti, even more impressively, his 18.5 meters per carry mark to go along with his try. This guy is a big reason why I say week after week, Utah succeeds in looking good even when they lose. So this match, as entertaining as you can hope, but I feel like New York should be a little bit more in control at this point against bottom of the table competition, especially if they want to make a shot or a legitimate run at the title by the end of the season.
What the title for the wooden spoon? Winner of the wooden spoon.
Das Wooden Spoon.
You have to lose to win the wooden spoon.
Yeah, New York's not going to be winning the wooden spoon.
No, I'm pretty sure Austin has that one locked down. So the third game of the weekend, Liam, why do we keep putting you first on these games? I don't know, man.
I don't know, but I'll take it.
It's painful. Houston traveled to Toronto and fell 21-35. Now, I will say, and I feel like I've said this before, this one was pretty close for quite a while until about the third or fourth quarter when really Toronto stepped up and just kind of took over. So, yeah, Liam, go ahead, man.
Yeah, well, F me, right? So one thing about Houston is that they tend to fall off right in the second half, which they did, but the cliff this week at least wasn't as steep as it usually is. A few mistakes here and there is ultimately what allowed the momentum to swing Toronto's way and cost us the game. Still, they definitely showed some instances of improvement on, on the line speed. The issue is that the improvement isn't coming fast enough at a stage of the season where most of the top teams are peaking. Like we were talking about, San Diego is better than they've been all season. Houston is kind of getting to a point where I wish they had been 4 or 5 games in. But hey, whatever. Some improvement is better than no improvement. One huge issue that dogged this team was a lack of points off penalties. 3 occasions they were able to kick for touch either at or inside the Toronto 22, and they came up with nothing each time in terms of points. So on top of that, the Cats conceded 13 penalties on their own, which even alongside Toronto's 10 was just too much to overcome.
So why didn't Windsor kick sticks?
Because I don't know. Here's the thing. I know for a fact that Fitzy has been putting a bigger emphasis on just kicking for sticks and taking the points. And sometimes,
there was a penalty early on where they could have kicked sticks and they didn't take it, and they went to the set piece and they lost the ball. So,
yep. I mean, hey man, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Sometimes I think there's a. I think it might be fair to say there's a. Not miscommunication, but just like a difference in opinion about what's the best.
So here's the question: could that be a difference in who was captain on the day? Because Luc Beauchamp was captain, and previously it had been Matt Trouville. So maybe they had different philosophies. I don't know. Statistically speaking, we could really dig into that. But it was just interesting because earlier on in the season, there has been such a propensity to where, Houston would kick sticks. And, we saw it in a different game, which we'll get to, in that, they kicked sticks 6 times in the Seattle game.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely could have made it. I don't think it would have made the difference. They weren't given that many opportunities by Toronto, but it definitely could have made the game a little bit more closer, potentially bringing them to within a reasonable range to get the bonus point for losing by less than 7. Definitely worth noting in this game how aggressive Toronto was at the breakdown, managing 3 steals off the counter ruck. That should just be easy ball security for the SaberCats, but instead it's just more scoring opportunities for the Arrows. So that's another knock that you can definitely find with. Overall, Houston had a 54% possession advantage, 600 total meters gained for an average MPP of 3.9. Toronto, 420, gained off 83 passes for an average MPP of 5. So not a ton of movement for Toronto, but it was those mistakes by Houston, particularly those last 2 scores in the second half, is what really gave Toronto the edge. For the Cats, Jameson, Fa'anana, Schultz definitely stood out, 74 meters for 5.6 meters per carry. But when you talk about guys who really made a mark for the Houston SaberCats, Pat O'Toole, one mad nice guy. Shout out to Pat, dude. I love you. He was an animal all around the ball. Got himself a try to go along with 70 total meters gained. He's the Cats' own version of Dylan Fawcett. I think is a really good comparison to how he plays his game when he's at the hooker spot. And he can hurt you with the ball or with the tackle, which we saw both examples of on that night. Toronto, not a lot, very flashy in the box scores. Kiona Lloyd led the team with 63 meters gained. Meanwhile, the Airs put down 5 tries by 5 separate people, so that's pretty darn freaking impressive. Toronto needed this win to keep their playoff hopes realistic, but ultimately I have my doubts about their chances against teams with a greater ability to finish. So, Aaron, I know you were saying a few weeks ago that you could see Toronto fighting for that Final Four spot with all those home games coming up. I still disagree. I think Toronto is going to be looking at that 6th spot as long as Houston is occupying the 7 and Utah's occupying the 8.
They're still alive. That is a fact. But
they're still alive.
Did some work last week with the MLR kickoff, and it really doesn't look like they'll make it. They're going to need some help. Mathematically, they're still alive, but they have to win out the rest of the way. This is where win-loss record versus bonus points matters. One of the things that we've seen is even if New Orleans falters a bit more, they've secured so many bonus points that they are a playoff team. Like they're not going to fall off. Like I think we projected like 52, 53 bonus points, and New Orleans has 45. So New Orleans is in. So that means the other teams that are ahead, like would have to falter as well. And I don't see that happening, especially with San Diego. I think San Diego is going to surge and they're going to continue like snagging bonus point wins, and they will probably be your number one seed just the way their form is.
Ooh.
But
would you bet on that with San Diego being the number one seed, but by the end?
What, like
we have a lot of NOLA fans as listeners, man.
I mean, San Diego ain't paying me anything, man. Like at least for NOLA, I got a shirt, man. Like so.
Wait, Aaron, I thought San Diego was your favorite team.
What?
Adrian, for giving me some of the
oh my god!
swag.
You're a correspondent for NOLA for San Diego last year.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, if San Diego wants to show some love, or the fans, the supporters group, the cohort, if they want to show some love to the show and send some kit, it will be displayed. But as far as like stuff that's cool, I mean, I've like half the season or a quarter of the season that we've been online this year, I've repped NOLA because, well, I have some NOLA stuff. But that's how this works. Sports karma. You want to be on the show? Utah, thank you. You gotta send it in. But no, I'm a fan of players, but I'm not a fan of theirs at the moment, unless they relocate to Phoenix. Don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. So onto the game. I figured that fitness and mistakes would be the end of Houston here. It sort of was a classic Houston game to where they're able to put together some stuff and score some points. And that's kind of how I saw it. It wasn't really flashy. Liam, you watch so much SaberCats film, so you could probably look at this tell me. So I looked at Palamo, and every time he had the ball, he's a powerful carrier, but I did think that he got contained pretty well, but I also don't think that he wasn't given the opportunity to carry enough based on the way the SaberCats attack was going, if that made sense. I sort of said this earlier on in the season that they just needed to feed Vithi because he was so much powerful than the people who would be looking to tackle him. And I sort of looked at it the same with Palamo. It is what it is there. It's kind of interesting a bit. If you think about this game, it sort of reminded me of the Houston versus Glendale game where Houston just shot out ahead, except that instead of continuing their scoring, in this case, Houston would be Glendale. Instead of continuing their scoring and playing good defense in the second half, they scored a try and then couldn't do much. And Toronto, non-flashy, scored a try with Mike Shepard and Kainoa Lloyd off the bench. Did some things where people are wondering how he hasn't that the Euros are so deep that Kainoa Lloyd's able to come off the bench. And he put it away for them with their fifth try of the game. Just like I said, Houston's playing disjointed. Maybe let's tighten up instead of playing out of a 1-3-2-2 and just get simple and play a 2-4-2 and just bludgeon. I mean, sort of use that pack a bit, like the way it's been used in bludgeon teams, and then a lot of ball movement. Pat O'Toole, like you mentioned, he just continues to show me that he's ready for the next step. He is captured. He is not capped. He played in the America's Pacific Challenge for the USA Selects. So he is on the depth chart for hookers for the Eagles, but man, we are like 10 deep, which sucks because I really want to see him called up for the PNC and get a cap. But apparently, the best way to get a cap as a hooker right now is to also be able to play flanker in case something happens. Can he play flanker?
I mean, I could realistically see Pat playing flanker. He might not be tall. He might not be that tall. I mean, then again, he's not that much shorter than Cecil. So
I mean, it's kind of a joke because the first match that Capelli Pifoletti got capped, he was inserted at flanker. So yeah. But Toronto dictated tempo early, scrum well, went up 21-0. But then I have no idea overall what happened. Sabercats woke up, and they started to scrum well on turf, scored 21 straight points, and then Toronto's 2 scores to close out the match. It wasn't the best game. It wasn't even the most exciting. So yeah.
Yeah, it was what it was. It was a Houston game.
Yeah.
The last game of the weekend, Sunday night, closed out. It was a late one for us here in central part of the country. So NOLA traveled up to Seattle and must have ate a little too much fish because they had that fish oil fingers working for them. A lot of folks I know were talking, and Aaron, you commented about this on Twitter, or maybe it was Reddit. A lot of folks were calling this the game of the weekend. And I suspect you kind of feel a little differently about that. NOLA did fall to Seattle 24-25. I mean, they were in it to the very end. It was a close one. So Aaron, talk us through what happened.
I don't know. I looked at this game, and I guess I have the opposite opinion of a lot of people. I didn't think the intensity level was there between the most intense match, the 2 most intense matches of the season, and then you could say the third. 2 of them involved San Diego. San Diego versus the Seawolves when they won up at Starfire, the second game of the home and away, and San Diego's game against New York. Like, those were the 2 most physically intense games of the season. Not some of the quality in that New York game really wasn't there, but like it felt like you could feel it through the television that it was like professionals battering each other. And the other really great quality game was Seattle versus Glendale to open up the season at Starfire. When I see the stats, it looks better to me than it looked on television. The defenses played very well. There were only 5 line breaks made for Seattle and only 4 for NOLA. So that says a lot. If you look at, the kind of offense that happened, I would sort of call it a Glendale game because Glendale, they put up a lot of offense and they still lost. But the difference is really 1 penalty, 1 less turnover. They probably score, or 1 more conversion kick, they probably win. The goal boys are gonna be mad, man. It turned the ball over 14 times, conceded 8 penalties to 9 turnovers and 5 penalties to the Seawolves. Seattle chose to kick sticks quite often in this one. Not sure why. It was an overall good strategy. It did yield the W, but man, it got dicey very late for the Seawolves when, they scored that when the Gold scored that last try and then got the ball back, on the restart. But here's an interesting stat. Seattle won 100% of their scrums. New Orleans, 71%. This has sort of been a weak spot for them throughout the season, but everything as a team, they've really been able to overcome that. Let's look at some tackles made, man. The back row of Seattle. Tucker, 26, Penny, 24, Reichert, 12. 62 total tackles between those 3 out of 227. So this really that defense played by played by Seattle, it felt, I guess, taken in all this context, it was like the seawall game from last year when Vili Tolutau just went off, and I think it was 27 tackles. So that's tasty. Scott Gale going out early really didn't help NOLA. Howden did play pretty well at 10, but Gale is a different guy, and he's been there 10 almost all of the season. Nick Feeks had stepped in previously for a start at fly half, but he went to wing, and Howden came in from center with Blewitt going into outside center. For Seattle, I think they're suffering a bit overall without Tiberio, missing just a second super dynamic wing. Sequoia Burke-Combs has a very high work rate. He has been putting a heck of a lot of minutes, 80 minutes this week. Great fitness, but he's not the same finisher. NOLA, and then one of the things that there was an injury to Shalom Sunila, who went off for an HIA. He didn't come back. And who else came on? Because I think Roland came on. But, Brock Stoller played outside center from the rest of that game. And you had Dion Crowder playing the right wing. And it just wasn't the same as for them as what they were able to do deep in the first half compared to what they did in the second half following those changes. I think really NOLA started playing their best when the wings on the pitch were Dion and Sequoia. That's how it seemed. So, all of NOLA's losses are by 2 points or less. So, yeah.
Liam.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute my microphone. So as I hinted at earlier in the show, I wasn't able to catch this game. I fell asleep after watching Game of Thrones, and I was really busy today, so I wasn't able to watch the replay. But anyway, some quick stats for you guys. NOLA 58% possession advantage, 1,021 meters gained at 4.2 meters per carry, over 220 passes, so tons of volume for the NOLA attack. Still, 14 turnovers is, I think that's been a consistent problem for the goal this season, and and especially in some of the more poor performances this season. Some plays to highlight: Tristan Blewitt, 132 total meters gained. He's continuing a potential MVP campaign, in my opinion, right alongside JP Eloff, who had himself 110 total meters on the day to go along with his all of his team conversions and penalties. So that's my.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Liam. I believe he's having some technical difficulties with his microphone right now. So,
there's a cat in the next room that apparently needs to stop meowing.
Okay, so it's that special time of the night where we get to go back through all of our hits and misses from last week and review. So I guess I'll just buzz on through here, especially since Liam's going to take care of the issues on his end. Josh was kind enough to jump in last week for me while I was moving, and so I'll go ahead and read his scores in place of my own since I didn't make any guesses last time. First game, we had Raptors at San Diego, and that one came in at 46 San Diego, 15 Raptors. Aaron, you had San Diego by 7. Liam had Glendale by 3, and Josh had San Diego by 2. So I think everybody thought this was going to be a much closer game than it was. The second game of the weekend saw Utah traveling to RUNY, and everybody guessed this one right, but I think everybody thought this one was going to be more of a blowout than it was. So Aaron, you had RUNY by 10. Liam had RUNY by 8, and Josh had RUNY by 15. Traveling for Houston at Toronto, the final score there was 35-21 in Toronto's favor. Aaron, you had Toronto by 15, so you were almost right there. So close. Liam had it as a draw, and Josh had it as Toronto by 20. And the final game of the weekend saw this was the close one. This was NOLA at Seattle, 24-25, Seattle winning, and everybody thought this was going to be a good game. Aaron, you had Seattle by 3, so once again you were closest with the win there. Liam had NOLA by 5, and Josh had NOLA by 5. With all that said, Aaron, tell us where that takes us to in the standings.
Alrighty then. So, still atop the standings. They were going to be still atop the standings anyways, because bonus points. New Orleans 45 table points at 8-3. So we're finally seeing wins sort of dictating everything, because the top 4 all have 8 wins. San Diego at second at 8-2-1. They have the craziest point differential that is probably just going to get higher at plus 115. They have 41 table points. They hold the tiebreaker with win-loss differential over the Seattle Seawolves, who is at third at 8-3 with 41 table points. Rugby United New York is at 8-2 with 37 table points. So in theory, they do have a better record than everyone, but guess what? They ain't been getting in bonus points. The Glendale Raptors are at 5th with 33 table points. They're 5-4-2. If you're a win-loss American like me, the Glendale Raptors were at 2 for a while because of all the bonus points they have, but they're struggling right now. Toronto Arrows at 6 at 5-5 with a much needed bonus point win, 29 table points, and then tied up sort of, but with the win-loss differential in favor of the SaberCats at 7th at 2-8, 11 table points, and Utah 1-8-1 with 11 table points, and Austin, they were idle this last week, I guess last 2 weeks really, and they still have 4 table points.
So here's the weird one with this RUNY Raptors thing. That Raptors are only 4 points behind RUNY right now, and yet they've got a 5-4 record. I mean, you can see a situation where if RUNY loses the game and the Raptors win with a bonus point, they jump ahead of RUNY in the standings.
Which would just suck.
I mean, so they win with a bonus point, right? If New York doesn't get 2 losing bonus points, they drop. That's a crazy scenario to think of, but I really don't. Well, we'll get to that.
The way Raptors are playing right now, I don't see it as much of a possibility. But that being said, stranger things have happened. So let's get to our predictions. We got Week 14 coming up. First game of the weekend is on Friday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, and somehow that just disappeared on us. Come back. Anyway, it is Liam. Did you can you hit undelete or something?
Yeah. Dang it. There we go.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, my bad. I was trying to scroll down, and then I think I put too much pressure on my freaking mouse pad, and then I hate technology.
That's all good, brother. Okay, so RUNY, here we go. Speaking of, RUNY is traveling to Glendale. That's 9:30 p.m. Eastern on, this is the game of the week on CBS Sportsnet. One of 2 games of the week, excuse me. And Aaron, you start us off with your prediction.
All right, so I think it's actually going to be closer than y'all think. New York is traveling to altitude, and if they do it right, they're going to get in late on Thursday and do their get in late on Thursday and get in and out. However, based on the way the Raptors are playing, I'm going to give New York the edge just a little bit. New York -5. The Raptors looked dead in the water against San Diego, and New York didn't look dead in the water against San Diego, if that's my measuring stick.
Yeah, even with the altitude, I'm going to be going with RUNY on this one. RUNY -7. I think they're just the more complete team at this point of the season, and there's just too much tape on the Raptors at this point to not exploit. To be able to exploit all of the holes that they have available.
Yeah, and I just don't feel like the Raptors are the Raptors this year. So I'm going to go RUNY by 17. I'm going to go big on this one. Next up, also on CBS at 8 p.m. Saturday, April 27th, is Austin Elite traveling to Utah. So this is a battle for the bottom here. Aaron, what do you think?
Utah win, but it's not going to be overall convincing, but a converted try, so Utah -7.
Liam?
So I'm going to go Utah -14 on this. I think Utah has a greater ability to put the pedal to the metal, especially in the second half. I don't trust Austin to not completely fall off, towards the 50 or 60th minute.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and go with Austin on this one just because they got to win sometime, one would think. So why not this weekend? I don't know. I'm just saying Austin by 3. On Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus, we have got Seattle Seawolves traveling to Toronto. Aaron, what you got on this one?
So I think the Arrows are going to have enough. They're healthy overall compared to Seattle. They're going to have a better scrum from that standpoint than the New Orleans Gold did. And it's at home, and they're coming off a win. I think they're in a good place, but I also think that Seattle could win this. So I'm going to give the home side a small edge. Toronto -3.
Liam?
So I'm going to go with Seattle on this one. I'm going to go Seattle -11. I don't think, as I said earlier, I find it kind of suspect that Toronto can't really close out a game against a team that's a little bit more suited to go a full 80 minutes. Nothing against my beloved SaberCats, but I don't see Toronto being able to match up with a team that's a little bit more suited in the top 4. So, yeah, I'm going to go double digits on this one.
And as I've been saying all season, every time I bet against Seattle, I get disappointed. So I'm going to go ahead and go for Seattle on this one by 7. Last game of the weekend pairs near the top of the board, San Diego, with near the bottom of the board, Houston. This is in Texas at Houston at 7 p.m. Eastern on Facebook Watch. Aaron, what you got on this one?
Game over. San Diego -20. That might be not generous enough. It might need to be closer to yours.
I'm going to go with Bane will be showing up mid-game to cancel the match.
So I guess if a supervillain shows up to cancel the match, that means Houston does not lose, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like Austin getting their game canceled against Toronto. It's like can't lose a match if you don't play it.
Well, I'm going big on this one. I think this might be my biggest one yet this year, and I've had some pretty big double digits on these games.
Man.
I'm saying San Diego by 35. It's not going to be close. Sorry, Liam. All right, it is time for possibly my favorite part of the evening. It's time for questions from Bob.
All right.
Robert Gibbs won, with Austin being the first team to play all their home games and finishing with an average crowd of just 894. What do you think can be done to try to boost try and boost these numbers for next season?
Circuit of the Americas, where the Austin Bold play, in theory, is apparently much more palatable to the Austinites. Their haute couture feelings. It's sort of like being on the West Bank. If you're in NOLA, people think that the trek to Shaw Field is insane, and somehow moving just to the other side of the river is better. So I don't know. I think let's just do it. Let's do it at the UT soccer complex next to Darrell K. Royal, which would allow you to walk to 6th Street 2 blocks away. Somebody needs to do this for a test, because when you marketed Austin, but it's in Round Rock, I was like,
yeah, I was just going to say, define a venue that's a little bit more centralized to the downtown and maybe market a little bit more to the local clubs. Yeah.
All right. Peeps the Giant Cat. Why were Guillaume and Kershko traded away? So first of all, who are these people, and then why were they traded away?
Tim Guillemin got traded to the New England Free Jacks, and just because he saw the light and wants to win a championship in 2020. Against the SaberCats, go SaberCats.
Again, I have no idea why. I just know that they were traded. But have you seen Rodrigo Silva and Larome White? They playing good on a very bad team. So.
SD Yeti, Will Holder, Sevens camp guy, SD Legion guy, a little bit of both? Question mark.
He's a world-class athlete program guy, like Pat Blair. Does he want to play 15s? I mean, he hasn't played like any 15s all year, whether it was club with the Saracens when he was still in Seattle. He came down to San Diego for his, I think, broadening assignment. We're not friends. I'm just looking at the career as an Army officer. To make the Pan American Game squad and then become a regular on the squad next year so that he could make the Olympics again. That's why he's there. So really playing 15s wouldn't help him if he's trying to crack a much better team than when he was a part of it 4 years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say on that subject.
Nothing on that one. Conky 2195. Who do you think's the better team at the moment, San Diego or NOLA?
I'm gonna go with NOLA. I want to say NOLA just because they've had I feel like a more impressive season, but I think San Diego is peaking at just the right time, whereas NOLA has had a few issues here and there.
San Diego has beaten Seawolves twice. The second time, it was delicious. We will find out next week because San Diego either travels or hosts New Orleans. So they play each other twice in a 3-week period.
Say Ni wants to know, JP Smith, Seawolves' newest utility back, question mark?
I mean, he played 10, okay. Not horribly. I guess the real question is, where is Clarence White? Their backup 10 that they signed from CWU. What happened to him? Yeah.
I guess it just depends what your definition of a utility back is. So, I mean, he's a versatile player, so I guess.
Okay. WHS Jr. asks, with the talk of Dallas in 2021, is it possible that franchise is simply Austin relocated, or is there a separate ownership group in the works?
So I mean, as long as the Austin market is still seen as viable, there's a very vibrant rugby scene that, it's consistently voted as one of the best places to live in the United States. I don't think Major League Rugby would want to abandon, a market like that. But at the same time, if the team isn't being successful, who knows what's going to happen. But as far as I know, there is a group of people trying to get things started in Dallas. So, for right now, it is separate.
Yeah, it's going to be different. If we want to talk attendance and all that stuff, San Diego, Utah, and Seattle being on top of those three, and we'll see with Toronto the rest of the season. But those are the three when it comes to having good attendance this year. So, and that was sort of the same last year. Everyone else is playing catch up. So I as long as the Austin ownership wants to keep spending money, they're going to stay there. That's how I think that's going to work. Yeah.
All right. Last question of the night comes from YouTube. Steven Seller wants to know, does anyone know how and where semis will be played?
I'm tracking that the semis will be at the top 2 seeded teams' home grounds. So right now, the top 2 seeded teams are New Orleans and San Diego. So it would be at New Orleans, which currently for the semifinals is going to be the Zephyron Airline, something like that. So it's a baseball stadium that has 11,000 seat capacity, but much better locker rooms. Apparently, it's amazing. And of course, Torero Stadium. So that's what I'm tracking. And then I'm not really sure, but I think the top seeded winner of the semifinals hosts the game. Not sure, but I know that's what the semis are supposed to be.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for a great week. Appreciate you giving me the week off last week, so thank you for that. And I sure will try to get this echo thing figured out before we come back with you next Monday night.
Get some blankets on the walls, some pillows.
Blankets, yeah. Have to.
It'll be like a 16-year-old trying to put out a rap album, just totally pad it all up.
Dude, maybe I could become a SoundCloud rapper. All I need is a face tat.
Yeah, just some reverb, some gain. Yeah, man, just do it up.
So on our way out, does anybody have any final thoughts tonight?
Yeah, so beginning this Saturday morning, I will be hosting on Earful of Dirt Facebook Saturday morning Team Juice. I will be giving you some morning updates on the MLR games to come on Saturday and Sunday, and I will be recapping any Friday games that may have already happened. I will be doing that at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern. So definitely tune in to Earful of Dirt on Facebook, Facebook Live, where you'll be able to join me as I give you guys a good little preview, because everybody likes to wake up and watch a little sports in the morning. ESPN kind of got us conditioned to it, so I want to do that for y'all.
Aaron, any final thoughts tonight?
No, just enjoy the week. It's going to be, there's going to be some good games. I think we'll definitely see, unless Glendale does a Glendale and kicks New York's ass instead of losing, we will see sort of the playoffs really solidified.
All right. Well, with that said, on our way out, please note that all opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of the hosts and the guests and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or practices of Major League Rugby teams or the league. Aaron Castro is employed by Major League Rugby. Liam Madigan-Freed is employed by the West Houston Lions and the Houston SaberCats. Be sure to tune in next week. We're live every Monday night here on YouTube and available on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday morning. If you like what we do, please subscribe to our YouTube and iTunes feeds. That helps folks find us. And be sure to share your thoughts, news, views, and abuse with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. We will be back next week. Until then, go out and watch some rugby.